The next pose that we're going to learn is called the bridge pose, and it is exactly what it looks like. We're essentially forming a bridge with our body. And unlike the previous two poses, the locust and the cobra that we've learned, this pose is actually done by lying on our back. And just like in anything in yoga, there's a gazillion different variations of this pose. So we're obviously going to focus on the one that is the easiest to learn, not just to learn, but also to hold for beginners. So this pose is done by lying on the floor, bending our knees, and then you should be able to position your feet in such way that you should be able to slightly tickle your heels with your fingers. The easy version of this pose has our hands on the floor. So we're going to have our hands pressing into the floor, just like we did with the locust, where the surface of the palms are pressed into the floor, helping us balance our body, preventing it from shaking to the left and to the right. And in a nutshell, it means this pose really comes down to this very simple movement of raising our hips off the floor as high as possible. Now, while this looks very easy, it's actually not, because this really relies on the strength of the muscles of your lower back, which are probably very underutilized because we sit a lot, and also engaging our hamstrings, which are also very underutilized. So just to get a taste of this pose, try lifting through the hips and then hold this pose just to see where you feel the engagement. You should feel the engagement in your glutes, engagement in your quads, and engagement in your lower back. Now this pose, let's release here, this pose is done in a number of different ways. The easiest and the more natural way to do this pose is to come up with the hips and then lower with the hips. So and connect this with our breath. So we're inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. Inhaling and exhaling. And you will notice that maybe in the beginning you're not going to be able to really come up very high with your hips. Maybe you can sort of do it halfway through, but that's just the beginning, and there's no reason to be discouraged. Our bodies are completely different, and we move within our natural limits. However, we can stretch those limits in a healthy, non-injury way. So once again, pressing through through the palms, lifting the hips, and then moving them up and down with our breath. As we're doing this, we're ensuring that we're pressing through the palms, shoulder blades are on the floor, and we're helping this motion by squeezing the glutes and also engaging our quads. So the way you would engage the quads in this pose is you imagine you want to lift your kneecaps higher towards the legs. So you're coming up, you're squeezing the glutes and lifting the kneecaps, and you'll notice that your quads will naturally engage. So this is the dynamic version of this pose. There's also a static version of this pose, which I always recommend doing after the dynamic sequence. So you can do 1, 2, 3, obviously much slower poses, and then on the fourth one you can come up and you can just hold this pose while breathing, squeezing your glutes. And in addition, you can also add one tricky move here. You can try to bring the heels, without actually moving them, try to bring the heels towards your butt, and this will engage your hamstrings. So you can actually engage and work out your hamstrings here by bringing the heels, or trying to bring the heels into your body. So this is a really, really good way to strengthen your upper legs, your glutes, and obviously your lower back. As you can see in this pose, there's a back bend going on here. My back is bending and I'm really feeling it in my lumbar spine. So this is the dynamic and the static version of this pose. Now, if you really want to try it if you really want to really get that additional back bend here, maybe not right now, not in the beginning, but after some time that you have practiced this pose, you can also interlock your hands behind your back. So you can lift with your hips and you can bring your hands, interlock them like this, interlock the fingers, and then drive the elbows and the shoulders into the mat. So you, by driving the elbows and the shoulders and your hands into the floor, you really drive your body into a much exaggerated back bend. And this pose feels absolutely amazing. Holding this for 3, 5 breaths, even more. And then eventually releasing it all the way back down. Now, if you've never done this pose or you've been holding this pose for a while, you will feel your lower back. That is a guarantee. So the way to release the lower back from this pose is to hug your knees into your chest, crossing them at the ankles. Really hug your knees into your chest, and you will feel the release of tension in the lower back. So you can hold this for as long as you absolutely need. There's no particular timing here. So hold this pose for as long as you need to release the lower back after the bridge. And when you're done, let's jump into the final posture of today, the spinal twist.